Okay, welcome back. This is Painting the Grick Part 2. And I last left off with base coating. I was doing a little base coating here on Mr. Grick. And, or basing, I should say. I wasn't base coating, I was basing. And I was putting some little stones and rocks on him here. And yeah, they look pretty crappy right now. So I'm going to see about maybe improving that a little bit. I'm not too happy with the way that they're kind of looking, but you got to follow the process. I mean, you gotta give it time. So let's see. Yeah, I used a little sticky tack glue before. Now I'm just going to use another layer of glue. This is just straight up Elmer's glue. I'm gonna be honest with you. There's oops. Sorry, I didn't have the microphone plugged in. I spent all this money on a fancy microphone for these videos. You know, it was at least $10, and so I kind of want to use it. You know what I mean? So hopefully that's a little better. So yeah, I'm just putting down some Elmer's glue, and yeah, I'm just going to move on to the next step, which I can't believe I put this in the paint. And yeah, what a mess! All that paint wasted. Unbelievable. So, without putting this back in the paint, I'm going to move on to the next step here, where I'm going to use some of the Brown Battleground is the name of this. Brown Battleground. Okay, so the way that I do this is I put the Elmer's glue on there, and I take some of this and I just sprinkle away right onto my wet palette. Kidding. Kind of tap it off here a little bit, and it is a process. I mean, just to be honest about it, it's just you gotta follow the procedures, and eventually you'll get to where you're going, but it takes a minute. Okay. So yeah. All right. So the last thing I might do is, yeah, just fill in the rest of these blank spots here with a little sand. And so I'm going to get my brush back out. I'm going to pour my Battlefield Brown back. Yeah, dip into my glue here. I'm just trying to find some sparse areas to maybe fill in just a little bit with some sand. So yeah. Okay, just one last little spot here. And I'm going to call it. Okay. Yeah, we'll see how this works. So, again, I'm going to use just my little bottle of craft store sand. And just pour this over top of it. Hopefully getting down into any of those final nooks and crannies. Tap it off here. Okay. And so that's where he's kind of looking at now. It's sort of sitting amidst some rocks and rubble. And you can, yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're looking at it and going, that, you know, that color is great, but then you've got that like white underbase. Yes, I know. We're going to fix that right up. Don't you worry. Put the lid back on my Battleground Brown. Put my sand away real quick here. Put the lid back on that. Put away my Battlefield Rocks, which is really just ground up cork is really all that is. And so I'm going to go ahead and go back to painting while this all just kind of sits up and dries. And yeah, because I don't want to do too much messing with it while I'm waiting for it to dry up. Okay, but then afterwards you'll see how I'm going to address the areas that are still just that stark white color. Okay, so now it is time to go back in and touch up some of the areas. I'm going to start with the beak here. I'm just going to just kind of go back in. Kind of get that that bone white a little shot there. Now for the body of the Grick, I was thinking what I would try was something new I've never tried before, and we'll see how it goes. It may or may not work out. What I was thinking was I want to try this vomit color, but I'm not really sure. I've never used it before. So yeah, vomit. You know, I guess all we can do is try, right? I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Honestly, it looks a little more like the coating of the underside of his belly, so you know what, maybe I'll use it there. And what I'm thinking I might do is just try it in a dry brush. So the area is not very big, so I'm going to use a really tiny dry brush. And let me see, I think I'll use this one right here. This one looks nice and small. And we'll just see how it goes. What you do with a dry brush is you just put this tiniest little dab. And I'm not putting it on the wet palette because I kind of like to be able to mix it in a little bit. It's very interesting. It's quite wet, so maybe I'll do just more of an overbrush where I'll wipe it off. I'm just going to wipe it just a little bit here, and see how this goes. We'll just kind of okay. So honestly, I'm not sure how I feel about this, but it's not horrible. It's kind of interesting, this vomit color, because it's got, honestly, as a dry brush, I don't know that it's, you know, meant to be dry brushed, but it's kind of working a little bit as an overbrush, and it's kind of glossy, so it's giving his belly kind of a nice texture. I'm sorry, as I'm putting it on here. So yeah, I'm not. Oops, getting a little thick there. Yeah, yeah, okay. Sure. Again, as an overbrush, I think it works. And an overbrush is similar to a dry brush, but you don't wipe as much off, I guess. But it's kind of giving his belly sort of this nice little worm-like effect that I really, you know what, I don't really hate it. I mean, I can live with that. Okay. All right. Now, so for the next part, his little suction cups. Again, I don't know exactly how I'm hoping this is going to work, but they're so tiny, and I could see it being really tedious to just get in there and go for every single one of them. So yeah, again, I'm thinking a dry brush again and what I'm going to use another one of these game effects of rotten white, and oh shoot, I still have a little bit more to do here on his tail. And I might need to, yeah, I think I'm gonna have to put just a little more vomit out. It sounds so lovely. Let me just make sure I've got plenty of vomit out here. Just a drop, just the tiniest drop is all I need. And let me just be very sparse with it here. Maybe even wipe just a tiny touch off so that I can get just these final little areas of his belly here that I missed. I think I was just not really sure that I was sold on this color, but now I'm just saying, sure, what the heck. Okay, so done with that. I think that's enough vomit for one night. And time to, think about giving him some rotten white on his little suction cups, and we'll see how this works. For this, I'm going to use, again, the same kind of a dry brush technique. I'm going to really try my best to really get the dry brush technique down, though, because this is this is going to be delicate, so we'll see how well it works. Just a little bit of pigment here on the bristles of the brush, just enough to really start to pick up some of those details of those suction cups. Yeah. That's all right. And when you're dry brushing, you're just sort of flicking the brush to get some of the pigment off. And honestly, dry brushing sometimes works a little better. As it's really gotten a lot of the pigment off, and then you're really, just kind of going over it again and again. And you don't want to overdo it, but you don't want to underdo it either. So it's important to know when to stop. I'm happy with that. I can live with that. So now what's left is maybe his top here. And for that, I've got to bring it up in color in some spots. And I think I'm going to do that with another dry brush. Another dry brush. Aren't you surprised? How could... I bet you never saw that coming, huh? Never thought I'd be doing another dry brush here. Now let me see if this is... Yeah, I think this is the size that I want. Whoops. Sort of like getting in there and knocking off all the basing that I did on him. That's okay. At least we know what sticks. Sorry. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to dry brush something over top of him here. And I think I will use this brush. Yeah, so the color that I'm going to go for, it still needs to be green, but not quite as... Yeah, I'm just sorry. I'm having a time here thinking of what I'm going to use. I'm thinking that so he does use stone camouflage. So I'm wondering here about this camouflage green, and you know, I guess the truth is that I could go with dark green, and then I could, which is kind of the color that I already have, and then just do one final dry brush with the camouflage green. So, yeah, give it a shot here. We'll see how it goes. Start with the dark green and load up my brush, and then wipe it all off. It seems like such a waste when you're dry brushing, because you know, you pay so much for this paint, and then you just wipe it all away. And yeah, so just flick it along here. Start to kind of bring up some of those textures. Oh, gotta be careful here. He's such a Jabba the Hutt looking little creature here. So yeah, back to his stats as a monster. So the Grick gets to do what's called a multi-attack, which means that it gets to kind of attack twice, but there are some conditions, like most creatures with a multi-attack, they get to attack twice with whatever weapon they have. But the Grick is a little different. It doesn't get to just flat out attack twice, which is kind of interesting. It has to... Oh, geez, I've been off screen this whole time. I apologize again. Just using this dry brush here to kind of bring up some of those light green colors. To be fair, I did say in part one of this video that I would be constantly moving off camera, and for that I do apologize again. So yeah, the Grick gets to make a multi-attack. And the way that it does that is it has to first use its tentacles, these little guys, right? So it's got to make its attack with these. And if it succeeds using those, then it gets to make another attack, and it can use its snout, its claw. So it's tentacles and then its beak. If the tentacles hit, then it can attack again with its beak, which kind of makes sense, right? It grabs you with these things and then bites you with its beak. Makes sense to me. But yeah, a little different than most of the multi-attacks. where, you know, if you have two swords, or if your monster has two swords, you know, then it gets to attack with two swords, flat out. Okay, so there we go for that. And now I'm going to just do the final dry brush here with a little of this camouflage green, just up in the highest parts. And then I think the last thing that I'm going to do is coat the base. I think I'm going to use some primer and paint it gray, and then maybe do a couple effects with some this is not quite mixed up enough, I feel. I'm going to use it anyway, even though it's not quite where I want it to be. But because it's a dry brush, I'm just going to wipe it off. Wipey, wipey, wipey. Okay. Just hate seeing that paint go. Okay. So now, in sort of the highest areas where the light's really going to catch it, I'm using some camouflage green. And I probably won't go I'm going to leave some of that dark, heavy black. And initially I'm looking at it and I'm going, oh geez, this is too much, right? Like this is just, it's a little too bright. But I think as the paint starts to dry a little, yeah, I think as the paint starts to dry a little, it's translucent. So acrylic allows some of the subtle color underneath to kind of show through. And I think I'm just going to let it kind of rely on that just a little bit. Okay, so yeah, I think that is one way of doing it. All right. So I'm just going to kind of leave him at that point for now. And like I said, I've got a game coming up on Thursday, and you know, he needs to be ready for it. And so yeah, I'm not really, you know, the ultimate concern that he's, you know, ready for this big parade. It's just that he needs to, you know, he needs to be ready for a tabletop game. So yeah, I'm going to just try to brush off any of this stuff that's a little loose or excessive. Yeah, I've got some of it kind of going here. And then I'm going to primer this all. I think. Yeah, so I'm just going to use some primer on that, make it gray, and then go from there. got to be really kind of careful here because you don't want to go over and muss up all that hard work that I just did with all the dry brushing and everything else. Although, it's not the end of the world if something does happen. But for the most part, I'm going to try to be a little careful here in this step. But yeah, I'm just going to paint this all with a primer. And then it will let me kind of create from the ground up a little difference in the colors of the rock. And I mean, it wasn't horrible the way that it was, but I just think I can, take it a step further here with using some heavy ochre. Oh, I'm sorry, using some ochre and some sienna, and coming back in, just kind of stippling into different areas. So it'll have some similar colors, and then I can do a wash, a black wash, really get into some of the nooks and crannies of the recesses of the base here. Yeah, okay. And then I just need to get just maybe get a little further in here, but being careful not to get on to that any of the work I already spent so much time on. Yeah. Yeah, just about. So this is just some gray primer that came with the Nolzur's Marvelous Pigments paints that I picked up at the beginning of the summer. And it seems like they're a good line of paints. They're basically army paints, the War Painters army paints. Okay. So there it's all kind of a single solid color for the most part, right? I mean, you can still kind of see some of that battlefield brown in there and some of those rocks, but I think at this point I'm going to use a little trick I learned from a YouTube influencer, Qui-Gon Leaf. He devs and dice, and he uses kind of a couple different things, but he uses these whoops, sorry. So I'm going to just use some of this lake yellow oxide. Yeah, I kind of wish I had some. It's just sort of mustard colored. Ah. I'm going to use a little of this. It's the burnt sienna. And yeah, it's sort of ketchup colored. So the ketchup and mustard oh gosh, didn't need that much. Okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna come in now and give it a little ketchup and mustard treatment. see my palette. I squeezed a ton of it out here, I feel like. Okay. And that's about enough of that. Now it just looks like this guy, yeah, got ketchup and mustard all over the place while he was eating. He was sucking down a double cheeseburger from McDonald's, and you know, it was extra messy and juicy. So he got ketchup and mustard everywhere. But I know how it looks. I know how it looks. But what we're gonna do is use a darker gray. So there's this cold gray, which is a nice kind of a darker gray, and then after that, so this is just going to be a basic sort of an overbrush, and then a lighter gray, which is a Stonewall gray. But first this, then a black wash, and then the lighter gray. Sorry, I'm kind of blowing on it here. So yeah, this is going to be sort of a an overbrush. Yeah, it's still a little wet. My instincts are telling me to wait just a bit on this because it's picking up some of the other colors, but maybe if I just kind of blow on it a little bit, I'd be able to. I'm picking up maybe more than I'm putting down. But yeah, that black should kind of come in and unify everything. So yeah, starting to kind of do its magic here. And a slightly smaller dry brush in order to proceed into some of the tighter areas. Oops. Okay, well, yeah, and the last step is, well, next to last step is the black wash. And then a lighter gray to really kind of set off the rocks a little bit there. So, yeah, for my black wash, I'm just going to use some of this non oil, not the gloss. I have both gloss and non-gloss, and this is the non-gloss, and it's just going to hopefully help create some shadows here. Okay, now as soon as this dries, then I can use another layer of gray to kind of come in and highlight that just a little bit. But that is going to take a little while, so I'm going to stop the video here. And the last thing I'll do is update it when it's dry and I've put on that final step. Okay. Oop. Okay, the drying process is pretty much finished here on the Grick. So we're going to go ahead and come in and dry brush now with some cold gray, or I'm sorry, Stonewall gray, which is a little lighter, and then the finishing touch is going to be the wolf gray, and hopefully that will. So yeah, I'm just going to load up my brush, wipe most of it off. Oops. And yeah. Yeah, I got a little close there, so I always keep kind of a brush around just in case, just to kind of get in and dab up any accidents, which I just had. And it is important to be careful in this phase of the painting. So yeah, that rock needs to be glued back down here. Yeah, so might touch that with just a little bit of super glue here. Just a little dab will do you. And I'll probably put it on the end of a toothpick here, just because that's the seems like the safest way for me sometimes is to do sort of a two-phase transfer with the super glue. Okay. Oh yeah, this whole thing's coming up. Jeez, you know what? I'm just going to go straight for the... Yeah, apparently the black wash kind of got in there and turned the craft glue into a sticky pasty mess. Which does tend to happen from time to time. Okay. Now, for the last step I'm going to use is the wolf gray here. And yeah, this is just going to add that final level of kind of a bright contrast onto the tops of the rocks. Again, I'm going to use a dry brush to do this step, meaning I'm going to load up my brush, wipe off most of the paint, and then kind of gently, delicately explore just the tops of the layers of the rocks as best as I can here. Okay, and yeah, that just about does it for this one. But I will be back again in the very near future, possibly tomorrow, with a with another miniature painting tutorial. So keep on the lookout for that. And yeah, here's one last look at him. Here is our Grick, ready for tomorrow's adventures. And so thank you all very much for watching, and I really appreciate it. So I hope you have a great evening or afternoon or day, depending on what time it is in your area. And yeah, keep tuning in for more miniature painting videos on this channel. So thanks again. Oops, sorry, just one last little. Realized I had a touch up here the last minute. That, yeah, I just kind of. All right, there we go. All right, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks again. Take care.